here with Mikhail Durnenkov, who is the writer for The War Has Not Started Yet, Alexandra Smith, who translated the play, and Davey who adapted and directed the play. So it's great to have all three of you here for a chat about the piece and how it came about. And do you want to start by telling us a bit about your ideas for writing the play and writing the play for here as well?
Okay, yeah. Can I speak? Yeah, okay. У меня было две идеи. Одна была с историей.
Okay, I had two ideas.
Одна была с историей, с героями, с четкими поворотами, драматическим напряжением и катарсисом в конце, а другая была для того, чтобы их было две.
Okay, so I had an idea first to produce a proper story that would have a proper conclusion, a proper set of characters, and these characters could develop. But then I decided that I could have another one, which would have a completely different structure.
Because I decided to have two ideas.
Two ideas.
So now it's a series of short vignettes or short plays that kind of come together to make an overall piece.
Да, но просто Никола предложила как раз выбрать вторую, ту, которую я уже ни на что не надеясь предложил, которая состояла из того, что, которая заключалась в том, что я напишу много кусочков жизни современной России.
Well, I suggested to Nicola to have two different versions, and the second version was particular to her liking, and that was based on this idea that I would just have some snapshots related to Russian contemporary life.
I think that's what's exciting about the piece, is it does give you a kind of little snapshots into kind of contemporary life, and I don't know, Davey, do you want to come in about how you felt? For me, I felt like, oh God, you're giving us an insight.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask, because I'm curious about which order that you wrote the scenes in, but do you remember when you started to write it and which story came to you first? It's quite personal, is that right?
As I remember, I ordered it. It's ordered as I wrote.
Okay.
So now я придумывал как бы историю, дополняя предыдущую. Вот. И когда понял, что их достаточно, на этом месте как бы пьеса кончилась.
Вот я писала в том порядке.
Это вы сейчас
I actually wrote it in a way it was written, this one and after another, the way how you see it now. But somehow it was quite interesting because at some point I decided, well, that's it, I should stop now.
Wow. And did you start with, because it feels like for us reading the play, we were like, the March for Peace feels like a very important moment, and I wondered whether, you'd be involved in that march yourself, and whether the play kind of stemmed from you being part of that kind of movement.
Я подумала, может быть, у нас была идея начать с этого марша, может быть, вот это нас было такое вот идея написать пьесу, как бы в стиле коллажа, но, может быть, вы тоже сами участвовали в таком марше?
Ну, однозначно я в этом марше участвовал. Это вообще, на самом деле, кажется, что истории выдуманные, но довольно многие из них документальные. Что касается и вот про кусочек про новости, и что касается про марш мира.
Well, it might appear to you that some things look as part of some sort of a fiction, but a lot of the stories actually took place in real life, especially the one that is related to this march. Of course, I experienced this too, but also the story that is related to the television news about the wedding child and so on. So basically, there are a lot of stories that really happened, and I just managed to reproduce them in a play.
Can I ask a question that's different was the experience writing for a Scottish audience as opposed to writing for a Russian audience?
Была ли какая-то разница между тем, что он пишет в шотландском?
Ну, наверное, вот эта работа, какой-то счастливый случай, когда я этой разницы практически не почувствовал.
Well, I felt that I was very fortunate because I didn't see any difference that particular time, the first time I just felt it was not difference.
Но обычно я вижу, что это две большие разницы, они по-разному. Одна заключается в общении со зрителем. Разница русского и британского театра заключается в общении со зрителем.
But thinking about my previous experience, I could say yes, there is a difference. But usually when you write something for a British audience, it is very, very different because you communicate to British status in a different way. But somehow I didn't feel it here.
And will this play go on in Russia, Davey?
Может быть, поставим это пьесу, скажем,
Ну, только в одном театре, я думаю, что будет.
I think it might be performed, but it could be perhaps performed only by one theatre in Russia.
And what would make it difficult for it to be performed in Russia? Why only one company?
Ну, по многим причинам. В первую очередь, потому что 90 или даже больше процентов театров в России государственные, и они получают деньги от государства. А когда кто-то получает деньги от государства, он должен что-то отдавать взамен.
Okay, well, the immediate difficulty is that about 90% of Russian theatres, or even more, they are sponsored by the government, and if the government gives you money, they expect certain type of place to be performed, so they expect something in return.
Yeah.
So were you able, because this was commissioned by a Glasgow company, were you able to be more free in how you expressed it, or did you say things you couldn't say in Russian?
Chance to write about what I want to write. So it doesn't try to speak what I want. It's what I must write now, because it's a really most painful theme now in Russia, Russian society. What about this play?
Are there certain things about Russian society now, or just what life is like in Russia at the moment, that you feel audiences need to know in order to understand the play or fully appreciate the play?
Well, it will play. Of course, society interesting to. I'm not sure that society want to know this one, because people want to know something. Ну, в смысле, люди любят услышать то, что их успокоит, то, что их устраивает.
И hear something that could comfort them, something that suits them.
И только маленький, очень маленький процент людей хотят узнать что-то, что они там не узнают, или там услышать что-то, что им не дают услышать.
And there's only a small percent of the population, sort of a small group of people who really have some critical abilities, and they would like to hear something that they don't get from television or from other sources of information. So they have a certain curiosity to have to hear more about certain things.
I think it does do that as well. I think people will see this play and then become more interested to find out more and to have deeper conversations in a way that you wouldn't if you didn't come into contact with the script. Definitely. Yeah. And at the same time, it reminds them about their own situation. So it's obviously makes you more curious about Russia, but at the same time, it's about so much more than just Russia. It's about the situations transferred to other places. I think.
Yeah. Davey, then can I talk about your relationship and your relationship to this piece? Because for us it's a real honour to be able to put on this play, the 3 plays that we put on. And it's also fascinating to be able to bring in, it's a different process putting on Russian plays. So we've had your input as translator, and then obviously your input. So before we get to the actual production that the audience can see, it's gone through various. So it'd be interesting to hear,
And that might sound like it's a process of moving away from your initial intention, but actually, hopefully, it's been a process about bringing the audience as close to your original intention as possible, so that they experience the play as if it was, as if they, could directly access the original text.
Yeah.
That's kind of been the hope anyway.
Но с другой стороны, у нас была задача, чтобы приблизить зрителя к вашему тексту, поэтому на самом деле получилось так, что мы как-то наоборот могли приблизиться к тексту.
But I think, what you were saying about giving audiences an insight into into Russian life, and also they're being able to identify their own lives. I think that's the kind of key thing we're hoping.
But I felt a huge responsibility because, in a sense, I wanted to make sure I didn't misinterpret the play or add something extra which didn't belong in the play. So it was important for me to ask lots of questions to understand it as deeply as possible first.
Я очень боялся, что я могу что-то не так понять или перебрать, в общем, поэтому я была очень рада такой возможности, что я могу задавать различные вопросы, чтобы все-таки дойти до сути.
А мне кажется, что еще сам прекрасен сам по себе вот этот формат этого театра, он такой совершенно не дидактичный, он позволяющий зрителю какой-то иметь свободу. То есть мне кажется, что это прекрасно, что ты можешь всегда как-то убежать от какого-то давления, не знаю, в свою тарелку или в свой стакан, и это здесь как бы реализовано.
Well, actually, I also think that the format of the plays that are performed here is extremely good because it's very flexible. It could bypass many conventions and it could enable any playwright really to do different things here. I really like it because usually a lot of things are quite didactic and sometimes there are a lot of conventions and the whole sort of frame could be very rigid from my experience.
But also I feel like in the play you've created space for other people to interpret and to bring their own creativity into the piece. So the actors, for example, found it really rewarding to work on the play because they had to make choices, and then if it was a different actor, it would be a different choice, it would have a different result in the performance.
Актеры тоже могут выбрать, как им лучше усилить что-то или наоборот приглушить и так далее. То есть у них тоже будет чувство выбора.
Да, мне кажется, это какой-то некий определенный театр. Мы делаем и сделали здесь, некий определенный театр, в котором не так важно какое-то национальность, или еще что-то, общее гуманистическое какое-то высказывание важнее. Поэтому в нем, конечно, свободней себя чувствовать в международном смысле.
I think here we have used a collective effort. We've created a new type of theatre that could be really quite inclusive, and it gives an opportunity really to focus on humanist values. So it doesn't matter which nation you belong to, but you could really relate to certain situations that are described in this play.
And absolutely, that's the real strength of the play. It's not kind of didactic, it's not propagandist, and its message, it's very much about humanist kind of people bring their own.
Чувство пропаганды, что здесь получается с таким открытым концом модернизма. По-разному оценивать всякие ситуации.
So thank you.
Thank you, like all three of you. I mean, it's all been brilliant contributions to the production.
And
So,
thank you
yeah.
for
I could just
bringing
say
it.
it was a pleasure to translate because I just love the text, and I think that Mikhail has a very poetic touch, and I think he has a very good notion of space because when I was translating, I immediately sort of could visualize how people would do it when they act or perform this particular play, and that is, I think, is a great talent. I think, frankly speaking, I think you have a lot of things that remind me of Chekhov. It's true, because I teach Chekhov.
That's great to hear this for
for
Russian players. Any Russian player.
That's true, because like Chekhov could have different perspectives and certain flexibility. I think that's good because you've got so many nuances. It's good.
Thank you.
Brilliant. I've taken you away from your Lefroy, so thanks very much, guys.
Thank you. Cheers.